Every morning in SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. So if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed.
Hey everyone, I'm Mickey Roberts, and welcome to Knowing Nothing. If you aren't familiar with the audio clip you just heard, it's an excerpt from a University of Texas commencement speech given in 2014 by Admiral William McRaven of the United States Navy. It went viral a few years ago, and I have to admit, when I first listened to this speech in its entirety, I may have cried a little bit. It's just so inspirational, and it's also a great introduction to what I want to talk about today. How making your bed can save your life. Just kidding. But I do want to talk about good habits and maybe share a personal story about how building good habits has changed my life for the better. I also want to get a little bit of science in there and maybe some positive psychology too. So let's dig in, shall we? I know making your bed might just be the single most annoying chore any of us suffered through our high school years and even before. I mean, I'm sure most of us didn't even do it. It's time consuming, it's seemingly pointless because you just unmake it all over again anyway, and it's your bed. Why do your parents even care if it's not made? Just close the door and pretend it's made, Mom. Making my bed was always a nightmare growing up. My dad went to a military-style boarding school in Canada as a kid, so it was absolutely mandatory that every morning throughout grade school, my bed was made. Eventually, though, come high school, I fought back and I embraced my sloppy haven. And looking back, I think the messiness that I was living in high school had a larger impact on me than I was willing to accept at the time. High school is a turbulent experience for most kids, emotionally, socially, chemically. And no, I'm not talking about THC, although maybe that too. For me, high school was like a factory of stress, just pumping out new nuggets of anxiety on a weekly basis. I was in an emotionally exhausting relationship for all 4 years, 14 to 18. Plus, I was trying to take honors courses and be on the dean's list, make the hockey team, be cast in the school play, write my papers, go to parties, and just be liked by other kids. Full-time job. I didn't have time to make my bed or clean my room or any of that crap, so I didn't. My room got messy, and my mind, in return, got messy. I developed some bad habits of not taking care of my space and not taking care of myself, and I took those bad habits straight into college, wherein I didn't have a mom or a dad yelling at me to get organized. And it was fine. At first, all I cared about was my newfound freedom and independence. I didn't have to go to class if I didn't want to. I could smoke all the weed I liked. And there was pretty much a party every night of the week for freshman Mickey to try and get into. And no one was telling me to make my bed. In freshman year, carried on, awesome. You know, it's college, it was fun, it was liberating, it was experimental, it was often stupid. And then toward the end of that year, I found myself in a relationship with a girl who had me head over heels in love. And she was an older woman. Yeah, she was older than me. She had just graduated college. She lived in Brooklyn as an actor and as a dancer. So here I am, 18 years old, college freshman, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, dating this older girl, this real girl who'd left the college world already, was an adult. Like, oh my God, I was in love. Long story short, we had a hell of a time. It was a great, loud, vibrant relationship. It was inspiring. It was reckless. It was downright addictive, and it was very, very, very short-lived. She broke up with me, and I was devastated. And now there's a lot more to this time in my life, and if you're interested, maybe I'll dive into it in another episode. But the point of this story is that the end of this relationship, along with a few other vital factors, resulted in a tipping point for me. The following 2 years of my life hazed on sluggishly in a thick soup of what many people like to call depression. So why am I bringing this up? Well, remember those bad, messy habits I had in high school? Well, imagine those habits were brand new, bald chia pets. You know chia pets, like the little plants that grow? Imagine they're brand new bald chia pets, and then a rainstorm came and they started to grow. And then you spilt your steroids on them, and then Stephen Hawking wheeled over and multiplied them by 1 billion, sold them all to Elon Musk, who stuck them all in a rocket and launched them into space with the trajectory measured to wrap around the sun, picking up speed from its gravitational pull, and then slingshotting it directly into my coping skills filing cabinet. Yeah, depressed Mickey was not a clean boy. Now, if you've ever been depressed, I don't think I have to explain it. And if you haven't, I wouldn't be able to toss in a satisfactory explanation as an aside anyway. So I'll save that for its own episode, all about my roller coaster time as a depressed Mickey. But one thing I will say about my depression is that the black hole of negativity that swallowed my mind was perfectly represented in my dorm room. For most of those 2 years, I lived in utter squalor. My roommate at the time was also suffering from depression, which made living together super easy and simultaneously super duper sad and super duper messy. I couldn't see my floor beneath all my dirty clothes and heaps of crap. I don't think I ever turned on the light, and there was absolutely no room in there for anyone but me on my side, my roommate on his side, and our stale mass of sorrow in the middle. But back to bad habits. Due to some extenuating circumstances, I left my college a year and a half in and moved home, whereat the messiness didn't subside. But as my mother is a certified psychotherapist, she was keen to nudge me towards some life-changing steps out of my doom and gloom, not the least of which was making my bed in the morning. One thing I learned coming through on the other side of depression is that the opposite of depression isn't happiness. It's vitality. It's doing things. It's not being stagnant. It's making tiny movements upward. Like Admiral McRaven said, "And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better." Every day I would come home heavy-headed and dark-hearted, wondering whether it was even worth it. And I'd open up my bedroom and I'd see a made bed. And no matter how much it hurt to be alive, at least I did that today. And that little bit of motivation got me to do other tiny things, which in turn led me to say, well, today was bad, but at least I worked out this morning. And slowly but surely, there were enough at leasts that eventually the day didn't seem that bad. And then the day seemed kind of all right. And then it seemed good. And then one day, 2 years after I'd fallen into this deep hole, I looked in the mirror after crossing "go for a run" off my to-do list, and for the first time in so long, I liked the boy looking back at me. Now, I'm not saying that making my bed saved my life, but I also kind of am. When we're growing up, parents tell us to clean our rooms, make our beds, line up our shoes, fold our laundry, and the like, for a whole bunch of reasons. 2 of which, I think, are that it teaches us responsibility, and it teaches us how to take pride in ourselves. Building good habits, from keeping a clean home, or making a to-do list, or working out 5 days a week, to calling your family members every few days. They're not just chores, they're not obligations. They're opportunities to be proud. Opportunities at which, when they're crossed off your list, you can look at them and think, wow, I'm the kind of person who does these things. I like that person. I like me. Okay. Now that we have all the personal, gooey, gushy stuff out of the way, let's back up my opinions with a little bit of light research. While scouring scholarly articles as well as regular articles, I came across a whole bunch of correlations between a messy environment and mental health. Psychologist and author Dr. Sherry Borg Carter, for example, correlates clutter with stress and anxiety, writing that clutter bombards our minds with excessive stimuli, visual, olfactory, tactile, causing our senses to work overtime. And this sort of consistent overstimulation can lead to anxiety and depression and even physical issues like mild to severe muscle tension or even mobility restraint. Anxiety is no joke. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, an estimated 44 million Americans suffer from anxiety disorders. It can be wholly crippling. But in my experience, there are some really good, easy ways to get rid of your anxiety, or at least get it under control before resorting to medication. One of the best is to minimize clutter in your life. I started by going through my old stuff and, finding those old receipts and birthday cards and dirty shirts and just throwing them away. Clearing out a space for myself to be able to relax. And again, try making your bed. It feels good to check it off your to-do list. When we do things like this, our brain releases a neurotransmitter called dopamine, which is involved with reward-motivated behavior. Basically, when we complete a task, a release of dopamine triggers a feeling of pleasure in the brain. Like a reward, the flood of this molecule acts as a catalyst, motivating us to seek out another task to complete, which will trigger another influx of dopamine. This repetition of actions for the resulting pleasure is something neuroscientists refer to as self-directed learning. It's also how we build good habits. All you need to do is push yourself. Make yourself knock down that first domino. And the more you do it, the easier it'll be. And eventually you won't even have to think about it because the dominoes are just falling. It turns into a good habit. So in the words of Admiral McRaven, if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. That's all the time I got today, guys. I hope you liked learning probably a little bit too much personal information about me knowing nothing today. I want to make this podcast as interactive as possible. So if you like the episode, or if you want to reach out to me and talk to me about your own personal experiences, battles with depression or anxiety, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can get me at Sound Pollination. You can send me an email. You can tweet me at Knowing Nothing. You can Instagram me. I, for one, would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. Let's learn a whole new nothing next time. If you like this podcast and you want to support us, please go to our donation page. You can help us out any way you want. Now we can try and help you out too. We just recently started working with Blue Apron. So now if you go through our podcast, you can get a $30 off discount. It's an amazing company for people who want to eat healthy but just don't have the time. Again, my name's Mickey Roberts. Thanks for listening.